My name is Dr. Robert Kaufmann. I'm from Fort Worth Fertility in Fort Worth, Texas. Founded our clinic about 8 years ago. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Kind of hard to believe. I know I look pretty young for my age, but I look good for 80, so that's good. Anyway, I've been working with surrogates for a long time, the whole IP surrogate thing. Along with myself and my lab director, we've done over 1,600 surrogate cycles, so a lot of experience with it, and I love it. Why do I love it? I love the whole thing, what I do in reproduction. I went through in vitro fertilization 4 times with my wife, got 2 IVF babies. So I haven't done exactly what you guys are going to do, but yet been kind of sort of in your shoes, want to build a family. And you know, my road wasn't smooth, because at the end of the day, what you guys are looking at is having a baby, and your ultimate success rates are really good. You know, because what you guys are going to ultimately use is a donor egg, and it's all about the egg. Not to lessen your deal, it's all about the egg. Every time I have residents in my clinic, I mean, they're like, oh my God, the same thing over and over again. But it's all about the egg at the end of the day as far as success. You know, and the way I look at it to try to simplify the process is you've got egg, sperm, and uterus. So really, it's not that complicated. You mentioned you're overwhelmed, and I totally get it. But if you really break it down, egg, sperm, and uterus. So it's like a Mexican restaurant with tacos, fajitas, and enchiladas. That's it, right? It's just a matter of getting it all together. So the way I always approach this is like that. You know, as far as the sperm, if you guys are all interested, I don't know where, again, I mean, you kind of told me kind of where you're at a little bit with the process, is the first thing I recommend is doing a sperm count. You gotta do a sperm count before you get anywhere into this process, because I've had IPs, or they call it intended parents, come to me, and they've already started looking for surrogates, donors. They come to me, I do a sperm count, and there's no sperm. So the first thing you gotta do, even if you're thinking about this, is do a sperm count. And I'm not here, but I mean, you could go you know, you could even ask your primary care doc just to do a semen analysis. Don't have them send you to a urologist, total waste of time. Just say, hey, I need a sperm count. I'm not going to a urologist, just order it for me. And then what they can do is they can tell you where they do sperm counts. You know, they may or may not have a container there, so wherever you get your sperm done, you can ask them for, because you need a container, you can't use just a jar. It's got to be an approved, yeah. I mean, we get them in different, you know, baby food bottles and this kind of stuff. Like, no, I don't think so. And you want sperm, not urine. We've even gotten them come back with urine. I'm just saying, you guys look awfully bright to me, but so you see it all. I'll write a book one day, and I'll autograph it for you. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. But your first thing is you want to do a semen analysis, and then the second thing you want to do is there are 2 ways to do it. You can contact a clinic or an agency. Okay, to get the ball rolling, okay? Because your sperm thing, basically once you get into the process, what we do is we get the sperm, and then we do some FDA testing, because the sperm egg is going to go into surrogate, and the government looks at the tissues, being donated tissues. They don't care if it's a heart, lung, sperm, egg, whatever, and so there's just some testing. So for our IPs, what happens is either they come to us originally, or at least for us more commonly, the surrogate agencies send us these patients. And so if you see an agency, you talk to them about finding the surrogate, you try to do some matching with the surrogate, and then commonly, especially it depends if they're local or out of town or international, they come in, we freeze a sperm sample, do the testing on the guy at the same time, and then you're basically done as far as the medical aspect is concerned, because we got you guys on ice. So you didn't have to come to the clinic when we get the eggs. And then for the surrogate commonly would come to the center, and so we're just really interested, and she's already been screened. You guys need to be comfortable with the surrogate as well, because you've chosen her, okay? And then sometimes what we even have is the intended parent come to our center. About the same time we do the screening on the surrogate. You just do it kind of temporarily about the same time. You guys can go get some dinner or whatever. This is just not an uncommon scenario. As far as the surrogate, we check the uterus. We put a lighted instrument inside the uterus called a hysteroscope, make sure the oven is good. do an ultrasound. We have a catheter we use to put the embryos in. We just make sure it's going to be a pretty straight shot, but embryo transfer is pretty easy too. But we just want to make sure there's no difficulties with that. And then they do blood testing. We do blood testing just to make sure that they don't have HIV, hepatitis B, C, and then we check if they have a partner as well. They get a psych screen. I mean, we're all a little crazy, right? But just want to make sure you're not too crazy, you know, 2 standard deviations off, and make sure they pass that, which, I mean, you could tell if somebody's nuts, right? Although I couldn't tell well, usually, I should have probably done that test on my first wife, but I didn't, that's okay. That's it. And they get a psych screen. And then the donors really, you know, the 2 critical parts in it, if you'd say where are the critical parts, it's the egg and the clinic you use. Because that's what's going to, you want to get pregnant. Bottom line is you want a baby out of this deal. And it's expensive, emotional, so you need the very best donor and the very best clinic are really the 2 things you need. Again, your sperm, surrogate, honestly, you know, you check the surrogates, but most surrogates are pretty similar. You just need to feel comfortable with them. You need to feel that synergy with them. But even if they had a problem with the uterus, it can be repaired, but usually they're fine. And so, end of the day, you want to make sure you pick the right surrogate, and you're not going to pick a surrogate without really feeling comfortable with them. And then what the clinic is going to do when they see them, go ahead.
Could you ask to meet the surrogates' significant other as well?
I like to do that personally, because and that's a very good point.
Or they screen too?
They get a psychological screen and they get blood work done. We don't check their uterus. So no, but we check. Yeah, we do, and I think that's really important. That's a very good point, because you all need to feel comfortable if they have a partner. They don't all have a partner, because they're going to be living in the house, and then you want to know, okay, let's say you get pregnant, and a surrogate would have, one of the requirements is we want them to have had a child. So they probably got children at home. Well, what happens if you got bed rest, you're pregnant and you got bed rest, who's going to help you? So I always try to find out what the social situation there is, if they've got a partner, you know, how do you feel about it? And if the husband's there, I kind of go, hey, you know, like I remember this one guy about a year ago, I asked him, I said, and he was very quiet through the whole interview process. Everybody's different. And so I said, you know, you've been a little quiet. I mean, what do you think of the whole thing? And he goes, and I said, you know, what do you think of the whole surrogacy? And they've done it before. He goes, you know what, once my wife delivers that baby and hands it over to the intended parents, it's all worthwhile. I'm like, whoa, he gets it. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it's important to meet everybody, but they all get screened. And then as far as the donor, you want to choose a donor that's got, in my opinion, lots of eggs, okay? And how do you know if a donor has eggs? They might have gone through the process before. Am I repeating stuff you guys have already heard?
No,
okay. So if I have, just let me know, because I don't want to be too boring and stuff you've heard. So as far as the eggs are concerned, maybe they went through a cycle before, and you can determine how many eggs you're going to get from the donor. Or 2, let's say you choose a donor, they'll come to our center, we'll do an ultrasound on their ovaries, and you can tell by doing an ultrasound on the ovaries about how many eggs you'll get on the patient. Average number of eggs we get are 17, and you're wondering, you know, what's the importance of the number? Well, there are 2 ways to get eggs. You can either do a fresh donor, hot off the press, or you can use a frozen eggs, okay? And currently we use a frozen egg bank that we have high success with. It's less expensive, so if you're looking for like an expense thing right now, that's less expensive for you, because a frozen egg will cost less. So for example, if you purchase, for example, 6 eggs, it'll be about $15,000, $16,000, the eggs plus the treatment cycle, approximately, okay?
In case you, let's say your eggs will be washed and then sexed, I don't know how to say it, you know, separated, you want more boy than girl.
Oh, if you want to do, yeah, then the frozen eggs maybe isn't the best shot,
okay.
Because you'll have
that's
less.
One of the most important things. So.
For you to have a boy or girl? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends. Like for example, it depends on the deal. So if I have a single guy and he doesn't care if it's a boy or girl. Frozen eggs actually works really well, just as well as fresh and less expensive. If I have a couple, 2 guys, and you want to do analysis on the embryos, okay, and this one wants the girl and this one wants the boy, you need a donor that's got lots of eggs, because you already have 2 intended parents, so you're splitting those eggs. Then you're going to split the eggs because of sex, boy or girl, and then on top of it, you're going to have embryos that either are going to fertilize, they're not going to continue to develop. So a couple like that, I usually make recommendations to find a really hot tamale that's going to have lots of eggs, meaning you want something that probably give you about 20 eggs.
How many days or how many weeks is that possible to determine with an embryo?
So the process to get the eggs is about a 2-week process for the donor.
You know what I mean with the sex selection?
Right, so it's a 2-week process to grow the eggs. Like growing tomatoes, you go from green to red. It takes about 2 weeks to get, 10 days actually, to get the red tomatoes. So let's say I get eggs on a patient, today's Sunday, okay? What we'll do on Friday is we'll either transfer embryos or do the analysis on the embryos that we'll get on Saturday. Remove some cells from the embryos, and when you remove those cells from the embryos, you can do the analysis. So let's say I have, I don't know, 10 embryos, that's a lot, but let's say I have 10 embryos. We'll remove the cells, and that doesn't hurt the embryos. You know, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, in fact, my embryologist, he's done over 2,500 cases like this, so lots of experience. So anyway, long story short is you can remove the cells from the embryo, you don't harm the embryo, and you number them 1 through 10, and then on Saturday we'll get back the report card after removing the cells, keeping the embryos at our center, and then the analysis is done in a different city, a few places around the country that do that type of analysis, and then you determine which ones are genetically normal, and then you determine which ones, if you have a sexual preference, a boy or girl.
So, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
Is it that you already have the conception,
You have the baby. So before I put it back in mama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like you separate, like the whites from the eggs?
No, you can do that with sperm too. It doesn't work as well.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm moving.
So it's not like you made the conception,
No. This is after everything's together.
You have to have
you get the embryo, and then you can tell boys or girls.
And if you don't want it, then it gets destroyed, basically.
So let's say you have boy and girl embryos. You may not be interested in maybe the girls or whatever. We recommend freezing those, because what if you don't get pregnant, right? Then you might say, okay, that wasn't my first choice, but I want to have a baby of the deal. Otherwise, you got to repeat the whole thing over again, which can be pretty expensive. And then oftentimes my couples will say, or the person will say, listen, first of all, and we go over with the patient. They might say, I want a boy or girl. End of the day is we're going to look at the embryos and tell you what's going to give you the best chance of getting pregnant. And when push comes to shove, sometimes my couples will go, okay, listen, whatever's just going to give you the best chance. I know initially I started saying I want whatever. We're almost there, let's just do what's best. But my job is to coach my patients and let them know what I think is going on, and then they can decide based on the information I give them what they want to do. End of the day. And so important to get a good donor, and then important to have a good lab. Some labs are better than others, so you want to go to some place that's done a lot of cases and has a high success rate, because you want to make sure whatever meat and potatoes they get, that they're making a good meal, right? And it can vary, it's not all the same.
And in terms of fertility for men, what is the latest in terms of aging? The older that you can donate or make a baby?
It doesn't really matter a whole bunch. I mean, as you get a little older.
I've been reading about that.
No, I mean, there's a slight increase in genetic abnormalities as guys get older, but it's like minuscule, really. It's not big, There's a slight difference, but really, really small.
But can you detect that and eliminate that?
Yeah, you can do the analysis on the embryos, but I was, when I had my first child, I think I was 46, 47.
Because that's what I know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I have a particular interest in that. And, I'm not saying my kids are really normal, I've got my genes, but other than that, they're pretty normal. So I get it. Maybe a slight increased chance of autism, but all those risks, I mean, you can have a child with any of those type of problems anyway, and if it does increase the risk, it's fairly small.
Autism is not detectable in a genetic test, is it?
What's that?
Autism is
No,
not
it is not.
detectable in a DNA test.
No. No, no.
Just Down syndrome?
Yeah, genetic things like Down syndrome is the most common that most people know. That's an extra chromosome 21, but it checks all the chromosomes. You can have missing pieces and have pieces extra. And if you look at using donated eggs, probably around, on average, about 30 to 40% of those embryos will be genetically abnormal, even if they look normal under the microscope. And that's why, one of the reasons, you know, if you'd say, like, you know, what are your chances of getting pregnant? It's not 100%. But if we, for example, put 2 genetically normals in there, it's about 83%. But there are other factors of the embryos that we can't define. And that's an active area of research right now, trying to figure out what are different aspects of embryos, why do some stick and some don't. So maybe we can select, other than genetically, ways to figure out which ones are the best embryos to put back to give our patients the best chance of getting pregnant. And then if you put 2 in, you know, maybe 80-ish% chance of getting pregnant, 65% chance with 1. If you put 2, there's about a 50% chance of twins, which, good, bad, I don't know. I mean, my wife and I went through, we wanted to have twins just to get out of the mess. And honestly, I think it depends where you guys are at. If you guys are such that you want twins, I'd put 2 in because, boy, this is an expensive deal.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I mean, if you want twins, I recommend putting 2.
Splitting the cycle and trying to get twins, 1 for each.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. We do that quite a bit. And then the other way is to put, like, if you want to put 1, you can put 1. Like, sometimes I'll have some single guys that just want to put 1, I get it. And you can put 1. And even our clinic, we offer a thing where if you just put 1 and you don't have a baby, we'll do the frozen. We don't even charge you for it, because a lot of couples get involved, or individuals get involved in, well, obviously better chance of getting pregnant with 2, but we really don't want to put 2, and we won't put 1.5 in. You know, it's kind of a mess.
Doesn't work that way.
You know, they scream. It's horrible. I wake up at night, you know, sweating thinking about it, you know. So, and you don't know if it's the top or bottom to use, you know. So it's, anyway, let's not worry about that. But no, but I mean, or you can put 1. So it really depends on the couple.
Let's say if I got whatever sex I want and I got some leftovers, do I donate it?
You can donate them, would be awesome.
Okay.
Would be awesome. And like our clinic, or you could donate them, some clinics will donate them to different, there are companies that deal with embryos, but like in our clinic, if you donate them, we'll donate them to another couple and we don't charge them for those embryos. Because you're donating, and why would you donate? I'm not going to ask for money for something you donated.
And you specify it's not for medical research?
No,
just for
no,
babies.
no. Yeah, and they love it, and it works out really well because success rates are so high. And that's actually where we get a lot of our surplus embryos are people that use donor eggs because success is so high. Yeah. So, and that's good for the couples that want to use these embryos, because then we can tell them, hey, the chance of getting pregnant are pretty good because it's donated eggs, which tend to give you a better chance of getting pregnant. So the way I look at the whole process, you got the egg, the uterus, and your sperm. And even if your sperm count's low, it doesn't matter. You can take the sperm, inject it right into the egg. So just as long as you have sperm, it doesn't matter what it is.
Okay, so there's no diet, exercise?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
No, you can drink beer and then smoke cigars. I'm sure it'll be fine. So, doesn't
And
really matter.
there's some medications that they say might affect sperm, such as Zoloft. Some of the...
Most don't.
SSRI.
I haven't found that. Yeah. So really, I mean, if somebody's on something, you know, we'll check the sperm count, and if there's any sperm for what you need with in vitro, it doesn't really matter. And no sperm, believe me, Zoloft isn't going to knock out all your sperm. So maybe don't swim as fast. No, I'm just kidding. But it doesn't really matter. So sperm is really easy to work with. End of the day, it's the age of they're like cockroaches. They're a little hardy group.
You said from frozen ones, you said?
What's that?
You said from frozen embryos, you said?
No, he was asking about sperm. Can you do a technique, separate girls from boys? And there's a process called flow cytometry that they can do that with. And I think it's called Fairfax up in Washington, D.C. They do that. It's still considered a clinical trial. So I usually don't recommend it. I mean, I've used it before, but my success rates for it haven't been very good. So I prefer not to use that sperm. And with the genetic analysis and the way we do it, it's so much better. I mean, yeah. But it's another expense, you know. Yeah, there's another like, oh, I didn't think of that. And that's about, for the biopsy and the analysis is about $4,000.
Wow.
So it's not that you got to do that. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of my intended parents do when you get to that level. I know it's expensive, but then you've got a better chance of getting pregnant too. So, you know. So what other kind of questions did you guys have?
I think.
What's that?
This is very end right now.
Pardon?
Very end, right? We're wrapping it up.
Yeah. Got it? Any questions? Answers?
The win number for the lottery, so I can.
Absolutely.
Half a dozen.
Absolutely. Bet on 13.